Let's learn how to undo differentiation now. Just like everything else in maths, once we've learned how to do an operation, we tend to want to know how to undo it. So let's say we've been given the gradient function, the derivative. We want to know what was the original function. So we know it's y equals some function of x, but what was that function of x? Well, we can approach this and think, how did we arrive at this? We know that we would have done multiply by the power, reduce the power by 1. So if we run that process in reverse, first of all we need to increase the power by 1 and then divide by that new power. So 12 divided by 4 will give us 3. Similarly here, we're just going to rethink of that as x to the half. That was the result of adding 1 to the power, of multiplying by the power and then reducing the power by 1. So again, what would that have been? It would have been x to the 3 over 2, add 1 to the power, and then divide by the new power. Careful when you divide by fractions, it's usually easier to multiply by the reciprocal. So 10 multiplied by 2/3 would give us 20 over 3. So that appears to be our function, but there's something we've forgotten. There could have been some constant added on at the end. When we differentiate, we lose the constant, so there may be some constant, some plus c, that we need to add in. How could we find what that plus c is? Well, at the moment, we don't have sufficient information, so we know it will be something of this form with some constant added at the end. If they tell us, however, that y equals fx passes through the point, let's say 1, 6, if we know this, then we can now figure out what that variable c, what that constant c, sorry, it's a constant, not a variable, what is that constant c? So let's substitute in our y and our x value. So we know that 6 is equal to 3 times 1 to the 4 minus 20 over 3 times 1 to the 3 over 2 plus c. 1 to the power of anything is just 1. So we've got 6 is equal to 3 minus 20 over 3 plus c. So we're going to have 3 plus 20 over 3, that's going to be 29 over 3 is equal to c. So we know that our original function was y equals 3x to the 4 minus 20 over 3x to the 3 over 2 plus 29 over 3. So in order to undo differentiation, the antiderivative, if you will, we need to add 1 to the power and then divide by the new power. Add 1 to the power, divide by the new power. Remembering if it's a fraction, it's easier to multiply by the reciprocal. And then we must have plus some constant. If we're told what point our original function passed through, 1, 6 in this case, we can substitute in the x and the y coordinate to solve for c. Once we know our constant, we can then write out the full function and answer the question.